Congressman Rooney said afterwards that purge might be a pretty strong word, but he remains unhappy with what's taking place in those agencies. You worked with the FBI during your time at the CIA. How do you think that these kinds of statements affect how these officials are operating, and could it motivate them to take an even tougher approach when it comes to the Russia investigation?
I find those kind of statements shameful, frankly. Our public servants, they take an oath to the Constitution, and they work for Democratic and Republican presidents and administrations. And people like the president and our members of Congress and senators, when they speak, they're speaking to numerous audiences. They're speaking to foreign audiences who are listening closely. They're speaking as the head of the government to the people who work for them. They're certainly speaking to the American people as well as their partisan supporters. But it seems like people like the congressman there and the president are speaking to a small base of people who want, just like the Iranians do, to create a straw man to consider an enemy. They've tried to suggest that the FBI and CIA and Justice Department somehow are an enemy of the administration and therefore need to be taken down. And that's nonsense, is what that is.
In that interview,
it sends a really bad, it just sends a bad
Sure.
message to the American people, because those organizations are not partisan.
And I want to turn now to that interview that President Trump did with the New York Times on Thursday. He said that there was, quote, tremendous collusion on behalf of the Russians and the Democrats. There was no collusion in respect with my campaign. He referenced the Steele dossier and Tony Podesta's firm as two examples of what he means by Russian collusion with the Democrats. How do you think intelligence officials view statements like that?
Well, I think intelligence officials are not involved at all in, what Tony Podesta said, or, these issues related to Democrats and Republicans. Again, that language is meant to excite a base of people on a partisan basis. It is not language that supports the government civil servants and public servants who work for him, or that our foreign allies and partners we need to work with. It does not make them comfortable. In fact, it emboldens enemies and others.
That does happen when he speaks in absolutes in that way. And Politico, they are out with a new report on the hacking threats that many states face heading into next year's midterms. It says that states may be on a waiting list for up to 9 months for the Department of Homeland Security's most exhaustive security screening, which is cutting it close for November's election. What is your assessment of how the U.S. is doing when it comes to preventing future election interference?
Well, it's very clear that the Russians have a clear foreign policy. It's to do damage to the United States. These active measures, these things we saw in 2016 against us, that's part of their campaign. And frankly, that campaign is going to continue because it's inexpensive and it's successful. We as a country have to take this out of the partisan realm and look at this as a national security threat and deal with it that way. We need to work with partners in Silicon Valley and other places as a all-of-government approach to deal with this. We need to look at how we can defend and deter these type of activities. But so far, there's no reason for Mr. Putin to stop this, because there's been no price to pay for him.
All right, John Cipher, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Have a happy New Year to you.
Sure. Thanks, you too.
Coming up, can President